Hey everyone, it's David here. So I want to talk to you today about the interest rate, the housing market, and a couple things that I foresee. And keep in mind, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an economist, I'm not anyone. This is just my opinion on what I see the market, the direction that I see the market going. Do me a favor, if you've not subscribed to my channel, I don't know what you're waiting for, go and subscribe, and hopefully you'll like this video. Like this video if you think you will, or you can wait till the end on that one. So we're seeing a rise in interest rates right now, and everyone's waiting before they buy. I keep on hearing, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop back down to where they were. Well, a couple of years ago, we were in historical lows of all time of interest rates, and we probably are not going to see that anytime soon if we ever see it again. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've never seen interest rates in the 2 and 3% before. I know that my wife and I, when we refinanced our house, we were grateful that we could get what we got. I think we got a 2.75. And eventually we're going to look at another property. And I was thinking, okay, cool, we could take that 2.75 with us. Not at all. I don't think the interest rate's going to drop. I think the Feds have raised them. I think they're going to keep them up. And I think we're going to see them pretty much where they're at now. Now, you might see a quarter of a point go up and down, or half a point, a point. You might see them bounce around like a certain parameter, but I don't think we're going to see them back down to the twos and threes. And I know everyone, including myself, loves it. But especially right now with the housing market, we have a shortage in the housing market in the United States right now, and there's a real demand for housing. So how can the housing be in such demand? Well, there's a shortage, and article after article that you look at, it validates that we need more houses than what we have. And as long as that's the case, interest rates can be on the rise as much as we hate it. Now, one of the good things about interest rates being on the rise, I always hate to see people lose their property at an auction. And auctions and notice of defaults have increased. There are certain states, I think it was North Carolina a couple months ago that led. It's been the DC area, it's been all sorts of areas back and forth. In commercial, I believe it was Florida for a while, where foreclosures are on the rise. If there's a surplus, meaning if the property sells for over the asking price, that money goes back to the homeowner because they are the seller, and a lot of people don't know that. Now, this leaves a lot of opportunities for investors, because what I do is I get surplus funds, but I also jump in and I buy real estate, and I either fix and flip it, or I buy and hold, or I do something with it. And what I'm noticing right now is that the interest rates for investors are pretty high. They're higher than what you want to come in, and typically on a flip, you're going to be safe if you plan on $40,000 to $50,000 of profit. And some people say, "Hey, that's highway robbery." It's really not. You come in, you buy a house, you put 2, 3 months into it. You're putting all your blood, sweat, and tears. You're putting money in. You're trying to make money. You've got house payments. You've got insurance. It needs to be a lucrative business. So there's a property I have in Dallas right now, and I'll use this one as an example. And I forget what the interest rate is, but the property is up for foreclosure, and the lady and her husband were going to lose it. So I jumped in and I agreed on a purchase price. I came in a little higher than what I wanted. Well, they get the HUD, and we went through escrow. And if you don't know what escrow is, just give you a crash course. Escrow tends to handle a lot of your transactions in real estate. They hold your checks, so it's kind of a safe holding spot. No one's going to run off with your money. And then you've got title. Title will ensure that the property's free and clear. You're not going to see any surprise liens. So when the HUD came, she was getting $12,000 less, and she called me up and she was madder than mad, and her husband's yelling in the background, and I didn't know what was going on. So I called title, and there was a $12,000 lien that came up on this property. It was during COVID. So on this particular one, and what they did is they got some financial assistance, got help with the mortgage, and it was a lien, which is now coming back and hurting them. So I said, "Hey, this has to be paid." "Well, you're going to pay it." "No, I'm not. I came in with my highest and best, and we're now within days, and we're kind of in a little bit of a game of chicken." She's like, "Well, we're not going with you." And I said, "You know what? I'm really sorry that you feel this way. You didn't disclose this to me." And they're saying they knew nothing about it, and they're wanting to fight it. Well, they've got days left before their foreclosure. And I'm not trying to use that to my advantage. I'm trying to be as fair as I can here. So I said, "You know what? I'll go up half of it. I think I could do that if you'll give me a sub two." A subject to the existing financing is exactly that. I come in and I grab payments and I take them over. And I've had a few recent deals where I've done a sub two. Now, someone might come back and say, "Well, can't the bank call the note due?" Well, I put it in a land trust, which is pretty safe, and I've never had that happen. I mean, anything could happen. But as long as the bank is happy and you've taken over title, you don't want to call the bank and say, "Hey, by the way, I'm on title." What you do want to do is get permission to speak to the bank on their behalf, so you could work with the loan, make different transactions with the loan, and what have you. So I went ahead and I did this on a sub two. We've closed on the property, and I'm giving them 3 weeks to go ahead and vacate the property. So a sub two again is when you take over the existing financing. I have a title company set it up. I have another one not far from this property where I've done the same thing. The guy had a loan. Well, his interest rate was a 2.75, and a sub two just it made perfect sense. Now, some people will ask me, "Aren't you afraid of a Great Recession? Aren't you afraid that something's going to happen?" I'd be lying if I said I was never afraid. I'm always a little bit afraid. However, what we saw in 2009 was a lot of people had loans that they shouldn't have had, and it was a mad house of market. People just a mad market, I should say. Everyone had a loan that they shouldn't have had, and there's jokes like my dog had a loan or my landlady's dog had a loan. There was a lot of faulty lending going on, and yeah, that led to the Great Recession that we saw in 2009. I was caught with my pants down. I had several properties, and the value on them just dropped and dropped and dropped, and I had a really negative value. It was really scary to watch us get out or try to get out of that and hope you get out of that. So you always want to be careful. You always want to protect yourself. You always want to have a backup plan. That's what you want to do. Now, on this particular property, I had gotten financing for it prior, and I went to some private investors and had asked them to back me on the deal, and I showed them everything about the property. Now, there's a major foundational issue with this property. So I meet with the investors, and people are requiring more money down in today's market. That's one of the things as an investor. You're going to have to plan on more money. It's part of life here. So they said, no, absolutely not. We're not going to give you financing here because we want we want you to come in with 30-40% down. And I'm in a couple property deals and get a little nervous, a little spread thin. I was asking for 100% financing. I had done business with them before. So what I did is I said, all right, guys, I said, I'm going to take this to the next person. I said, but by the way, before I do that, I said, yes, I've never dealt with a foundational issue before. However, I did get a recommendation for a foundational specialist. Here's their bid. They have over 100 stars or a 4.7 rating online. Here's their bid. It's $11,000. And here's three realtors. They've all ran a CMA report. A CMA report is when you do a comparable market analysis. Everything within a quarter of a mile is what I like, half a mile if I have to. Everything inside the parameter of that. What are they selling? What are comparables to you're selling? Which ones are on busy streets? It's all data. Here's three CMA reports. All are coming up with the same exact price. Here's a quote from my contractor. By the way, my contractor's done several of my projects. He's fully licensed and bonded. Here's the profit that we're looking at the house with every being said with the 10% error. Have a nice day. My phone was ringing within minutes, and they were wanting to finance the entire deal, which I took them up on. When this issue came up, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get another 12,000 out of them because they did agree with me that the numbers were tight, but they were pretty impressed. By the way, if this is your first deal, get to that level, you're not going to be able to walk in. I one of the guys, the main guy, I knew very well, and he's financed me on a ton of deals. They've made a ton of money off of me, so it wasn't like it was my first rodeo. How do you get there? Go to some real estate clubs, get active, watch channels like this, get active in it. It's really hard to get into. This is why I push surplus funds, because in surplus funds, you're not putting up a huge earnest money deposit. You're getting people paid money they didn't know they've had, but when you get into real estate, it does take you a while to be able to build that kind of credibility for yourself. So when this whole thing happened, I went back to them and I said, hey, here's what happened. I got them to do a sub two. I still would like to keep our current terms and condition. I'll need less money from you, but here's the money that I'd like to go ahead and rehab it and do. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. It's fine. It was a private note that they're doing. They're still on board and they're fully funding it. Actually, they've already funded it. So it was pretty exciting to be able to do that. So as you go out and you look in today's market, if you're looking to buy, you're probably not going to find you're not going to find a 2 to 3% interest rate unless you do a sub two and they're out there. And that's what you may want to ask, even if you're with the realtor. When we moved, one of the questions I asked, so I'd been self-employed less than 2 years. So I asked if they would do a carry for 6 months, and the owner was very scared. I gave them a very hefty down payment. And I went through my realtor and I asked that. And then in 6 months, we refinanced them out. We got a 2.75, which you won't see that today. And it was a sweetheart of a deal. So don't be afraid to ask. And then you should also, if you're brand new at buying and you're looking into buying a house, you don't own one. Like I know my loan person, she has a first time buyer's grant that she gets everyone qualified for. And keep in mind, it's not financial advice. So they automatically get $7,000 toward the closing costs. But then we also look into city grants. There's all sorts of special programs for like people with certain financing, people with certain conditions. And look into those vets, especially. I mean, I see a ton for them. Find out if the city has any first-time home buyers program that you get involved in, because sometimes I see people come in and they're buying $100,000, $200,000 house, and they're coming in with 25,000 down. Well, that's sometimes 25% of the down payment, and or the, I'm sorry, 25% of the purchase price. That's a pretty good deal if that's available. And again, I don't see it available all the time, but I do see it out there and I do see it available. So take advantage of some of these things. Ask about owner financing. Hey, would you be willing to do a sub two and give me permission? Put the property in land trust. It's not that hard to do. I had an attorney put it together. It costs you a few $100, but do that, get it put together and put the property in land trust and then make yourself beneficiary and boom, you're set to go. There's all sorts of programs and of ways out there to make housing affordable. But going back to my original video, you're probably not going to see interest rates drop. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they're going to stay where they're at. You are going to see an uptick in rises and notice defaults and auctions. You're going to see an uptick in surplus funds. It's a great time to get people paid. And it's a great time to be out there in the market and just making sure you know your stuff and that you're doing it right. Hey, everyone, again, if this was helpful, give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.